6:15. No alarm has gone off. The eyes just open, the way they do every day at this exact minute, like something inside is keeping time on its own. The room is dark. Nobody is watching. There's no camera, no audience, no one clapping for what happens in the next 60 seconds. And what happens in the next 60 seconds is the part almost nobody talks about. Because before the mind fully loads today's problems, before the bills, before the messages, before the world gets a vote, something is already running in the background. A program, installed years ago, running without asking permission. Here's what almost nobody understands about the human mind. It cannot tell the difference between what's true and what's repeated. That's not a motivational metaphor. That's the literal mechanism of how the subconscious processes language. Say something once and the mind shrugs it off, unconvinced. Say it 1,000 times and the mind stops questioning it and starts defending it, the way it defends any belief it has accepted as fact. This single mechanism is the hidden engine behind every habit you've ever built, every identity you've ever worn, every self-sabotaging loop you've ever been stuck in. And it is also, without exception, the exact mechanism behind every transformation you've ever admired in somebody else. Most people believe this process happens to them. It doesn't. It's something they are doing to themselves on repeat every single morning, usually without ever noticing the program is even running. I want to tell you about two people. I'll call them Sam and Maya. Neither of them is famous. Neither of them had some lucky break. What they had was a discovery, the same discovery, arrived at separately, years apart, through very different circumstances. And once you hear what that discovery actually was, you'll understand why almost nobody who hears it ever actually uses it, and why the small number who do use it end up living a completely different life than everyone around them. Sam's story starts with failure. Not one, but a string of them. 2 failed business attempts. A relationship that ended in a way that left him questioning his own judgment. The kind of resume that, on paper, says, this person is not going anywhere. Maya's story starts differently. 2 jobs, exhaustion that lives in the bones, a bank account that never seems to move no matter how many hours get added to the week. Different lives, same starting point psychologically. Both of them, underneath the surface, had accepted a script about who they were and what they were capable of. A script neither of them remembers choosing. Here's the uncomfortable truth about that script. Nobody sits down and consciously decides to believe they're not good enough, not disciplined enough, not lucky enough. That belief gets installed the same way any belief gets installed. Through repetition, absorbed from criticism, setbacks, comparisons, and casual comments repeated. So often they stopped sounding like opinions and started sounding like facts. And once a belief crosses that line from opinion to fact, the subconscious stops questioning it and starts protecting it, the exact same way it would protect any other piece of information it has accepted as true. This is why willpower alone almost never works. Willpower is trying to overpower the output of the script, the procrastination, the fear, the self-doubt, while the script itself, the actual program generating that output, keeps running untouched in the background. It's like unplugging a lamp at the bulb instead of the wall. The visible symptom goes away for a moment. The source keeps running. What Sam and Maya each discovered, separately, was that the only way to override an old script isn't to fight its output. It's to out-repeat it with a new one. Deliberately, every single morning, before the old default has a chance to run first. 5 specific lines, said on purpose, every day, whether they felt true yet or not. Trigger number 1, the responsibility switch. The line was, I am the author of what happens next. Not the economy, not the ex who did wrong, not the boss, the market, the childhood, or the bad luck. Here's the mechanism hiding inside that one sentence. The brain runs on exactly 2 operating modes when it comes to circumstance. Victim mode and author mode, and it can only fully occupy one at a time. Victim mode feels safe, because if nothing is your fault, Nothing requires you to change. But that safety has a hidden price. If nothing is your fault, nothing is in your control either. Author mode is the opposite. Uncomfortable, because the weight lands back on you. But discomfort and power, it turns out, live behind the exact same door. You don't get one without walking through the other. Trigger number 2, the 1% reprogram. The line was, "Today I install 1 upgrade." Not 10, not a total overhaul by Friday. 1. Here's why this specific framing matters. Psychologically, the subconscious treats large, sudden changes as threats, and quietly sabotages them back toward baseline. This is the real reason most resolutions collapse within weeks. But a change small enough to feel almost meaningless slides straight past the mind's resistance system. It doesn't set off the alarm. And because it never sets off the alarm, it actually survives and compounds. Nobody sees the growth in week 1. Nobody sees it in week 6. Everybody sees it by year 3 and calls it luck or talent or a lucky break. It was neither. It was one repeated instruction, compounding quietly for a very long time. Trigger number 3, the fear override. The line was, "Fear can speak, but it doesn't get to vote." Fear isn't a character flaw. It's a biological alarm. Every person who has ever built something worth building has felt it at full volume, no exceptions. The difference between the people who stay stuck and the people who move isn't whether fear shows up. It always shows up. The difference is who's actually holding the wheel while it's talking. This is a reframe, not a suppression technique. The fear doesn't get silenced, it gets demoted. From decision maker down to background noise that no longer casts a vote. Trigger number 4, killing the fixed self-illusion. The line was, "Nothing about me is finished." This one dismantles a belief running quietly under almost everyone's self-image. The idea that confidence, discipline, intelligence, charisma are traits you either have or don't. Psychologically, this belief is one of the most limiting programs a mind can run because it converts every failed attempt into proof that the old limit was correct, instead of treating it as ordinary data from a skill still under construction. Every ability you have ever admired in somebody else, every single one, without exception, was assembled through repetition. Nobody is issued confidence at birth. It's manufactured, 1 rep at a time, the same way muscle is. Trigger number 5, turning the past into data. The line was, "My history is information, not a verdict." Most people carry their past around like a life sentence instead of a case file. But psychologically, the past only keeps its grip on you for as long as the subconscious keeps filing old failures under identity instead of information. The instant a failure gets reclassified from proof of who I am to data on what didn't work, it loses its hold on the self-image completely. It becomes something you have, not something you are. Now here is the part of the story that separates Sam and Maya from the 100 other people who've heard advice like this and forgotten it by lunch. Neither of them said these 5 lines once and waited for a miracle. Nothing happened in week 1. Nothing happened in week 4. Sam's bank account did not notice. Maya's second job did not politely disappear. What was actually changing wasn't visible yet, because identity change is always invisible before it's obvious. It happens underground, the way a root system spreads long before a single leaf shows above the soil. This is the part almost nobody understands about subconscious reprogramming. And it's the part that causes most people to quit right before it would have worked. Results are always the last thing to move, never the first. First the language changes. Then, quietly, the internal identity changes to match the language. Only after that, sometimes weeks later, sometimes months later, does behavior shift to match the new identity, because the mind will always act consistently with whatever it currently believes about itself, even when that belief was installed on purpose. 5 lines at a time, in a dark room before sunrise, by nobody but the person saying it. Months later, people started asking Maya what changed. They assumed something external happened. A lucky opportunity, a mentor, a break. Nobody guessed the real answer, because the real answer had no dramatic single moment attached to it. There was no one morning where everything clicked into place. There were roughly 200 ordinary mornings, in a quiet apartment, before the world woke up, where a new script got installed one repetition at a time, 30 minutes earlier than everyone else, saying 5 sentences to a version of herself that didn't fully believe them yet. And this is where most people misunderstand the entire process. So let's be precise about the mechanism. Your subconscious is running a script right now, whether you've chosen one or not. If you never deliberately install a new one, it defaults to whichever script got repeated most in your life so far. Old criticism, old setbacks, old comparisons, absorbed without your permission over years, running on autopilot. Reprogramming was never about deleting that old script. Deletion isn't how memory works. Reprogramming means out-repeating it, installing a louder, more frequent signal until the new one becomes the default the mind reaches for automatically. Every single morning you skip the 5 lines. The old script runs instead by default, because silence was never neutral. Silence just means the old program keeps winning uncontested. There's a season in this process that nobody warns you about, and it's the exact season where almost everyone quits. Psychologists sometimes call it the invisible middle. The stretch after the initial motivation fades and before any external evidence shows up to confirm the new script is working. This is where Sam almost stopped. Around week 6, nothing had changed on the outside. The old failures were still technically true. The new identity still felt slightly like a costume, but he kept saying the 5 lines anyway. Not because he fully believed them yet, but because he understood the mechanism. Belief doesn't have to come first. Repetition comes first. Belief is what repetition eventually manufactures, whether or not it feels real on any individual morning. Here's the sequence, precisely. If you actually want to run this instead of just watching it happen to somebody else, before the phone, before the messages, before the news, before the world gets first access to your attention. 5 lines, said out loud or in your head, delivered like you mean it, especially on the mornings you don't quite believe it yet, because belief was never the prerequisite. Repetition is the prerequisite. Belief is simply what shows up after. I am the author of what happens next. Today I install one upgrade. Fear can speak, but it doesn't get to vote. Nothing about me is finished. My history is information, not a verdict. Say them once, and nothing happens. That's expected. And it doesn't mean the mechanism failed. Say them for 90 consecutive mornings, and something underneath you stops being the same person who started. That was never motivation. That was psychology, running exactly the way it's designed to run. And now you know the mechanism well enough to point it at yourself, on purpose, instead of letting it run by accident. If this gave you a different lens on how your own mind actually works, subscribe, because next we go deeper into the psychological patterns, quietly running behind every decision you make without you ever noticing they were there.